Harry Belafonte was born in Harlem in the mid-1920s. He's been a pioneering singer and entertainer who was friends with everyone from Marlon Brando to Martin Luther King, Charlie Parker to JFK. Now 85, and with so many of his contemporaries gone, Harry Belafonte has written a compelling memoir charting the extraordinary journey of his epic life. When you were starting out, born in Harlem, to parents who were from Jamaica, poor, who were the pioneers who you could look to think, I could be different to the world that's around me?
Well, fortunately for segregation, we were all required, people of color, to live together in the same place. So in Harlem, I saw all the heroes, because Paul Robeson, Jackie Robinson, Joe Louis, Jesse Owens, Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, we all lived in the same place, the poor and the rich. That's not quite the way today. If it wasn't for television, we'd hardly know one another. I was befriended. Paul Robeson was the first one. Then came Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the greatest intellectuals of the 20th century. And these men stood strong and tall in the terms of dealing with human degradation and human pain. And they did things about it. Then there's a woman named Eleanor Roosevelt. And Eleanor Roosevelt was the wife of the President of the United States of America. And she threw her lot in with us, and she was constantly in our community. And so with these forces around, I didn't have to go very far to find where resided my models.
You signed up for the Second World War, I think around about age 17. How important and how defining was the Second World War and your time in that for you?
It was perhaps the most defining universal experience that I had. And those of us of color who were engaged in this war were conscripted and seduced into this struggle by the very persons who said they were fighting against this evil, this racist evil. And we said, fine, to the victors go the spoils. And since we were recruited to do this, when we came out of that war, if we were victorious, the generosity of the spoils would be spread so quickly and so generously among all of us who fought that war. Well, that was not the case. When we came back from those wars, segregation in America was more rigid than ever. The colonizing of the world became more intense than ever. Britain's oppression of the peoples of all over Africa and Asia became more intense. And that, for the first time, threw me into a sense of relationships, because I had more in common with the man of color coming from Africa than I had in common with my fellow American who was not of color. I found I shared the struggle of so many others, and therefore I was obliged to do whatever I could whenever I came upon those oppressions, wherever I found them.
Here's one of the great artists of our country and one of the greatest artists of the world. Here is Harry Belafonte.
Ladies and gentlemen, Harry Belafonte.
Mr. Harry Belafonte.
And now, it says here tonight that we're going to have the fabulous Harry Belafonte. Here he comes.
Woman is calling out. Every day you will hear a shout. That woman is calling out. Every day you will hear a shout.
So you're becoming more and more successful. Your albums are selling millions. You're a star of stage and screen. And then when you're touring, say, the Deep South in South Carolina, you accidentally end up in a whites-only urinal.
I was on a bus with the troupe, with the theatrical troupe. We were touring, and we stopped in a place that was a toilet facility that had for whites only, and the other part, in a less, more dilapidated, smelly corner of the space, was for colored. And I did not pay attention to the sign coming from New York. I got off the bus and walked into the white urinal, and as I was about to relieve myself, I heard a voice saying, if you let go a drop, you're a dead nigger. And I thought it was a strange thing to do, and I thought it was one of my colleagues off the bus being humorous. And I turned and looked, and I saw a state trooper, a police officer from the state force, standing behind me with his hand on his revolver. And he was deadly serious. He was white. And if I violated the law, he was going to let me pay a price. And the humility, the humiliation of it, the degradation of it, My urine had better sense than I did because it just backed up. And I struggled with the moment and left without letting go a drop in the urinal. And that indignity fueled my appetite for vengeance in a way that never left me.
Working in cinema, one's also struck by the fact that you're constantly trying to sort of battle against, and in television as well, battle against the system. You're not allowed to have relationships with white actresses too explicitly on screen. And then there's one moment, I think in Island in the Sun, where you try and have a play with that, with the coconut, which I thought was quite a clever way of trying to bring some element of your inner rebellion into the scene.
There was Joan Fontaine, one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood, standing with this new young actor, Harry, and we had this implied intense love relationship, and I never touched her once, and it made the whole thing so unbelievable. So we manufactured these ways in which we could pass off a sense of the deeper desire, and we had this moment where we're standing, because the location was in the Caribbean, and I offered her a coconut, and I just chopped off the top to get to the coconut water. And she drank it. And as she took the coconut away, she licked her lips and looked at where she had drunk her taste. And she passed the coconut to me. And I looked at her, found exactly the same spot in which she had taken a sip, turned the coconut, and placed my tongue first into the opening, and sipped my sip. And she and I looked at each other as I did that. For us, that was the creation of our sexuality. Let me just say this in observation. I take pride in the fact that you sit here as a part of the victory of what we did in trying to change the way in which perceptions were about people of color being permitted to have a voice and a vision of doing something other than being subservient.
Your dad was a violent man who beat your mother. You have a scene where your mother is standing outside 97th Street waiting to look for work as a domestic servant. Where does that inner strength to be able to step away and say, actually, no, unless I get to do what I want to do, I'm going to set up my own company. Where does that strength, that dignity come from?
From the very person you just described, from my mother. She pursued work with dignity, although she did a lot of undignified things as a charwoman. She walked away from jobs when she heard racial insults being hurled at her. And I like that. I saw her fire, and I adopted it.
My name is Harry Belafonte. I'm an artist, and I'm not a politician. But like most Americans, I have a great interest in the political and the economic destiny of my country. I'm seated here with Senator Jack Kennedy. As a Negro and as an American, I have many questions, and I'm sure everyone does.
I want to make it very clear, Harry, that on this question of equality of opportunity for all Americans, whether it's in the field of civil rights, better minimum wages, better housing, better working conditions, jobs, I stand for these things.
For us in the movement, justice was the #1 goal. If we didn't have the Constitution of the America on our side, interpreting our plight in the courts of America, we had no game. Dr. King, in his counsel to us, said, I understand that these political differences exist, but they are the people who are the protectors of the rights of the nation. And therefore your task is to find their moral center, because the moral force of our campaign was the supreme force of the debate.
But then moving forward to Barack Obama, you're not sure if he has that. It seems that you don't think that he's particularly got necessarily that moral center, and you say that you suspect that he doesn't have an empathy for the dispossessed, which slightly surprises you.
I don't mean to suggest that Barack Obama is a man without any morality. There is, however, this condition that I believe, that politics without morality is the politics of tyranny. Politics with morality is what moves civilization along to its best conditions. But in dealing with what Lincoln did, for instance, slavery is a travesty, a blight on the human conscience. We have to get rid of it. Roosevelt saying we have to get rid of poverty, Gandhi, these are politics of morality. In that sense, we've hoped that in this 4 years as president, Barack Obama would have expressed and revealed a moral center politically, that by executive power, the stroke of a pen could make a lot of gain for us, and he's not yet exhibited that.
It's an epic life and it's an epic story. What are you most proud of?
There's a potent force in being too prideful. It's narcissistic, it's self-anointing. And I'm so busy enjoying the moment that I just get on with it. But what I think I'm blessed with was the fact that the mentors, the things that mentored my life, that influenced my thinking, my philosophy, sometimes they led to each other, because I met Dr. Du Bois through Paul Robeson. Eleanor Roosevelt loved them. And there was this little circle of commonality, social commonality, that made talk to all of them easy and a nice thing to do. But I feel blessed that I had that, and it's part of what makes me feel a certain pride, if there is such a thing, in what it is that I do.
Harry Belafonte, thank you very much.
Thank you.